There's a lot that goes into planning out how to grow something. And one of the main components that most people don't want to think about is revenue. The amount of money coming into a system really determines the extent to which you can hire amazing talent, create systems that are worth following, and also having opportunities to go and sit at some tables that are going to make the difference. So how do you get revenue? I think first and foremost, people need to understand that it's not necessarily about getting one person, getting two people, getting 50 people. It's about getting thousands of people to know about your brand, thousands of people to know what you are thinking, what you require. Because at the end of the day, if one of those people falls out, you may not have revenue anymore. Or maybe it's a one-time purchase deal if it's an e-commerce, or it could be something where the contracts really aren't that long, but they're not going to go on forever. And so lead generation is an essential aspect of making any organization prosper. So I say to people, hey, if your goal is to make $1 million, I guess you can hit up 1,000 people. If your goal is to make $10 million, $100 million, billions of dollars, you need to get into the range of hundreds of thousands of people. And how do you end up doing that amount of outreach when you're so busy as a business owner? Well, you have to find someone to say, hey, it's very, very important for you to do this specific job, and this is how I expect it to be done, and these are the types of things that I want you to reach out with, meaning templates, emails, certain call scripts, whatever it is. The reality is, as the business owner, to some degree, you have to create the sales pitch. And I think a lot of people forget this in the minutia and the difficulty of actually just doing the work. But the reality is, without lead generation, you're always going to be afraid. You're always going to be scared that you are not going to have revenue the next month or not going to have revenue the next day. And without revenue, you cannot have a sustainable system. So here's some tips for lead generation. First and foremost, know your target audience. If there's a contract, if your ideal contract is X amount of money a month, depending on what that amount of money is, the first step is to identify who would be someone that can afford my services regularly, almost expectedly. When you make a list of those people, things start to change a lot in your head, in the sense that you're not going to waste your time trying to corral everyone that has less than that income range. You're not going to spend your time trying to pitch to people that have less than that income range. Sure, by byproduct, by outreach, by philanthropy perhaps, you can get those other people with the smaller contracts. But the aim should always be high. And I say always, always, always solve rich people's problems. Because when you solve rich people's problems, chances are that you will become rich in the process. So to create a pipeline that actually matters in terms of making sure that your revenue is filled, it's good to concentrate on specific clients that are high value, sure. It's good to pitch them again and again and again, sure. But really it's a numbers game. And the numbers tell all the big companies and all the people that are actually trying to do things in their business that you need thousands and thousands and thousands of people that know about your brand, that are qualified, and that you consistently hit up to say, hey, may I help you? You need something that I can offer. Now, the pipeline creation itself is quite simple. And there's probably going to be a document. If you just hit me up, I'll give you the document on how to create your pipeline. Now, the difficult part is having the mental reserve and the consistency to actually go and populate these lists with thousands and thousands of leads, qualified leads. And that requires hours of sitting down and research on Google, sure. It requires a vast network, consistently networking, because ideally, someone in your network will just give you those leads. Ideally, someone has already done something very similar to what you're trying to do, or at least providing services to companies that perhaps you want to provide services to. And so networking is also a large aspect of lead generation, because if you get in with a business owner, and they trust you, and perhaps they have synergistic businesses, you both grow. And by virtue of trust, they probably have really qualified people that are actually willing to spend the money. So actually doing the research, actually sitting down, condensing, doing the rote exercise of actually filling out these checklists, these pipelines as I call them, and then networking consistently are two ways to lead generate. Now, the third is advertisement. So advertisement comes in the form of actually being well SEO optimized. It comes in the form of organic social media, which a lot of you might think, hey, this is kind of stupid, I'm not going to build a following. But if you want to sell a course, if you want to sell anything that's smaller scale, you have to have an audience. There's a saying that you kind of want to get people excited about something before it even occurs, before it even exists. And the reason is because it helps you understand the amount of demand that is in the system for the thing that you want. And the more niche the thing is that you want, the demand for it's going to be higher, but it's going to be harder to find leads for it. That means that we need to go out of our way to actually do a lot more searching, a lot more networking. So it gets complicated, sure, but I don't think people realize that this is an essential component of actually generating revenue, is actually lead sourcing. And what ends up happening is we do all this work, we put all this time and money, we make this beautiful thing, and then we have no one to come see it. And I think a lot of artists struggle with this too when they start out, is realizing that the advertisement is actually more important. The lead generation is actually more important than the product itself. Contacts equal contracts. Quote from I was about to say Dr. Grant Cardone. No, he's not a doctor, but he's a smart boy. So lead generation, always, always, always be thinking about that in any sort of initiative that you're in. If there is not a consistent system, consistent people dedicated to generating leads, either via network or leads that actually pay you or leads that might be qualified later, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer tremendously. So my message to all of you is get to it. There's a lot of ways that you can create essentially systems that allow people that aren't all that skilled to do this lead generation for you. The reality is they really just need a copy pasting email that you format. And formatting these emails should be written in your own tone of voice, but the person formatting these emails also needs to know that they work. To some degree, they need to understand, they need to have sent enough emails in their life to where, yes, it's gonna work. The tone of voice, the pitching, constantly, as a CEO, as a leader, it is your job to inspire anyone that hits your brand to be like, yo, this is worth investing in. This is worth doing something with. So it really just turns out that doing the sales pitch again and again, which hopefully you're doing all the time, even before you start your brand or before you start your company, that will lead to the right verbiage, that will lead to the right structure for creating the templates. Doing enough interviews will create the right templates for how to do interviews properly. So the reps are required. And if you don't have them, I would strongly recommend hiring someone that has the reps, hiring someone that has the experience that says, hey, I've done this in my company, I've done this for 35 years, and at the end of the day, I know what works. Let them write the copy. So these little components are super, super important, but I think they get lost in the excitement of actually making an initiative. And I think they get lost in the minutia of doing the hard work, showing up in the morning and perhaps working for 6-7 hours and then coming home and being like, okay, I got this one person, let me just nail this one person down. It's good to care, sure, and it's good to be selective to some degree too, but only after you have so many leads that you can actually take a loss. Being selective only works when you have options, my friend, okay? So hopefully this helps you in any initiative, and mind you, this doesn't even have to necessarily be a business. If this is a student organization or a university, it's the same thing. If you want good e-board members, the way to go is not to assume that everyone in your e-board is amazing, that they are incredibly talented and that they're going to show up every morning and have the same amount of dedication as you. The initial assumption for me is always, okay, I know that there's going to be some sort of event where this key person might have to leave, or maybe they'll change their circumstances, or maybe they'll move, or maybe they'll get sick. So my initial assumption is that every single part of my system is going to be replaced. And with that assumption comes with the necessity to consistently come up with interviews, consistently come up with more leads, so that when those guys eventually move out, I have someone to fill the spot and I'm not sweating. So just realize it's a numbers game. You got to shake a lot of hands. This life is a numbers game. So check it out. Hit me in the comments below if you want that free spreadsheet of the pipeline. If you want to have a meeting and talk about pipelines, I'm all about it. I'm also a SCORE mentor, and so I do some nonprofit work as well, educating business owners and young entrepreneurs or startups about the business structures that are in place, that need to be in place in order to actually make sales and have sustainability. I scale companies also. I have a media company. So a lot going on, and frankly, I'm always looking for people. So if one of you is one of those people, let me know. Actualize your potential catalyst. This world needs you. Talk to you soon. Take care.